welcome back to the morning brief. And of course, we now switch gears to talk about this issue of BVN and NIN. We're having a chat just before we came on, and we're talking about the multiple IDs we need to have in Nigeria, from your driver's license to your voter card to your international passport to your bank account, BVN to NIN. The list goes on. And people are wondering, why can't we just have an integrated system? Well, the experts are here to answer all of that question. And you know, the deadline from the Apex Bank is today. Okay, that was last month. By today, if your BVN is not linked to your NIN, that's post of no credit will be on your account, most likely. So you cannot do any form of transaction. And it's going to be a disturbing one for a lot of people, because we have over maybe 150 people who are active in the banking system. And what we know from the records we have, successfully linked maybe about 60 million. So we're talking about almost 80 million people in the question. Whether it has increased between yesterday and now, we do not know. So it's a major crisis that we have to look at. So today, March the 1st, everybody should have been linked. NIN and BVN should have been linked, whether you're a tier 1 user or a tier 2 or tier 3. Well, let me not talk too much. Let me come to the guests. But just a foundation, we have joining us on the program Ayowande Adalemo, the founder and CEO of Wave 5 Wireless. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure being here.
Well, I tried to paint a picture of what we're dealing with, which is the numbers are quite huge. When I did a little bit of check, it's about the fact that some people may have had their NIN, have their BVN, but it's not linked and all of that. So maybe as an opener, help us understand why this is almost like a repetition, because that's why people are complaining about. But the banks are saying it is not a repetition, it's just that you have these independent numbers, but they are not linked.
So the banking system needs its own form of identity, right? Every organization needs their own form of creating an identity for you. The challenge we have is that there is no central identity. So the BVN is the way the bank identifies your account number and who owns it. However, if I can open an account, whether I'm a Nigerian or whatever nationality I am, and no one can tell who I am, identify where I live, where I come from, that's a challenge, which is why the BVN must be linked to your national identity number. So we can tell who exactly has this account number. Why people are complaining is because, one, the process of doing this linking is not driven by technology. It's most banks are saying you have to come to the closest branch to you to do that. That's cumbersome. The second reason is people feel, why don't I just have my NIN? Why do I need a BVN? If I have my NIN and I have an account with you, you already identify who I am. But BVN is not just for identity, it's also for all these reasons, tracing transactions within the banking network.
Well, for me, I'm wondering if this multiplicity of identities that we have, and that was the first question I asked, before we came on, is in line with international best practices. Is it obtainable all over the world, or do we have an excessive love for gathering identities here in Nigeria?
So I don't think, multiplicity is maybe the right word in the context of what we're talking about. Everywhere else, identities are linked to a national database. Here, we don't have that. And so when we say multiplicity, you're correct. I mean, Kyle said duplicity earlier on, because it's not linked together. Now, that's the biggest challenge we have. If you're probably in the US, you have a social security number, and then you have your driver's license. If I pick your driver's license, I can tell who you are, where you live, where all the places you've lived. That's not possible in Nigeria. If you pick my driver's license, that's all. You're only on the Federal Road Safety Database, and that is it. I can't tell what state you're from. I can't tell when you were born. I can't tell nothing about you. So the fact that all of these identities are not linked to a national database is the biggest challenge. Security, in planning, forecasting, economy, it is a big challenge that we don't have all of that linked together.
And you have to maybe understand where I'm coming from. For a lot of Nigerians, they see this as not duplication, but duplicity. Because they wonder, why do it's a no-brainer, right? I have a NIN, and a BVN, I'm the same person. Why do I have to now link my NIN with my bank account when I still my thinking? You know, all of that. They wonder, why do I have, it's a no-brainer, right? I am the person. I was registered. I expect that these things will happen seamlessly without me having to go to the banks. Have you been to the banks of late? It's total chaos.
It's chaos. It's chaos.
Yeah, you might wait 3-4 hours just for it. I mean, the process is not as tedious, but the waiting.
The wait times.
Wait time. Yeah. If you have to do it online from banks, will give you that option. You have to generate your, and these are two things, by the way. There's the NIN-SIM linkage. There's the NIN-BVN linkage. Yeah. So if you want to do the NIN-BVN bank account linkage, you have to generate this virtual NIN. Sometimes the network doesn't go through. You try the application. So it can be much of a headache, and you expect that, wait a minute, I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I'm just trying to be a law-abiding citizen. So really, we've been at this for so long. The NIN-SIM came up late 2000s or thereabouts, and you expect that we've had a lot of time to be able to, you know, fix this whole thing. So tell us from the back end, why is it difficult, really? Maybe we can begin to understand, why is it really difficult on the back end?
So, I think there is, well, maybe I should use the right word. I think we're just lazy. Technology makes things pretty easy. Technology brings convenience to the table. So, as a Nigerian, the most important number I should have is my NIN. Whether I am giving birth to today or I happen to now become a Nigerian after, I should have my NIN. And once I have that, whatever service I want to access that requires me to have some kind of identity with that service, which makes sense, is the first thing that service should do is to call up your NIN. And that database is there, that system is there. The National Identity Card Management Agency has that possibility. You can go online and actually collect your APIs through their own API and call up people's names. And there's a payment for you. For every call up, I think you pay 15 naira for every call up. So what is happening is that because there's no form of enforcement or penalties, people are just jettisoning that. Or maybe that fee is too high, because if I want to do 1 million call-ups, that's 50 million naira. And so I'll think, as a technology person, do I need to do this? Let me just jettison that, because there's no penalty, there's no law that says it is a must. So that's a challenge we have. I think we're just being lazy. The technology is there. It is not difficult. So that's number one. Number two is on the government side, and I'm happy that Engineer Bisi Ekuka is there now. I know she's going to do quite a number of things with improving and scaling up the infrastructure. The infrastructure is a problem. The contractors they give these things to, I don't know what their biggest challenge is. You don't love the country enough, or we want to make so much money. In Yoruba land, where I come from, they call it Iriajepajude, right? Like so much profit that it blinds you. The servers that the NIN and all of these databases sit, when you see a deluge of transactions on those servers, what they said now happens. It crawls and slows down because there's a limit to how much people can access that database.
Sorry, you said transactions?
Yes.
What kind of transactions are you talking about?
So when you try to call up a NIN or try to search for my NIN, that's a transaction going on, not necessarily monetary transaction. Once that is happening, the infrastructure we have on either the cloud service providers or even our local co-location service providers is such that it's expandable. It just understands that there are more people coming on this. But what happens, what we've seen repeatedly, is that the databases are stored on very limited servers. And so it cannot take, sometimes when there's a surge, it really cannot take that surge. And then you hear issues like network is down. No, the network is not down. We don't have enough capacity to take a lot of people at the same time. And that is the problem with the contractors that they've contracted all of these things to. Why can't we think of a solution where it is flexible and expandable? If 1 million people want to connect, it expands. I don't want to mention the names of these super giants, but the cloud service providers have that opportunity. You want to ensure that at any point in time, whether it's one person or 1 million people, your servers can take that traffic. And once the traffic reduces, your costs and your scale goes back to normal. And that's the best practice globally. But we don't see that with government infrastructure, whether it is driver's license or whether it is NIN, whatever it is, you find that situation where when people want to access and they are more than 10, 15, 30, 100, the server is down. It is because it is not hosted properly, and there's not much capacity to take care of situations where there's a surge or a demand.
It's almost embarrassing what you said for
it is embarrassing.
It's like I'm listening. I want to be sure I understand and I get what you're saying, and I think I do. And I'm feeling embarrassed as a country that we couldn't get this. So maybe the authorities will be able to respond to what you have said because we are not the technical people. But now that we have this issue on our hands, I gave you the data. Almost 80 million people are at risk of this whole, post no credit or debits on this account. And so how, with the situation you describe, how can we manage this potential crisis?
Oh no, there's no management. It's going to be chaotic. People are going to get stuck. But again, what have I been doing since 2023 December till now? What have I been doing? Why are my NINs not linked to my BVN? Why are my SIMs not linked to my... So I can understand those who use MiFi and all of these devices. There are about 12 million thereabouts of them. And sometimes you forget that SIM on your MiFi or your dongle is not linked to your NIN. I can understand that. But if I use a regular phone and I use my bank account, why have I not linked it? Again, I said earlier that we're just lazy as a people. Things that should be done the proper way, we don't want to follow processes until the last minute before we start running helter-skelter. So I really have no pity for 80 million people, except those who are disabled, handicapped, cannot, old, or whether too young.
But there are, sorry for cutting in, just to answer, there are people that were saying, I think the tier 1 or tier 3 users, I can't remember the tiers.
Yeah, so
they were saying that they were not aware. Because when the banks reach out to them, said, okay, you have this NIN, you have this BVN, the problem is that it's not linked. So where did that miscommunication come from?
Oh, so for the banks, I think the banks should show that responsibility. Once I open an account, the CBN circular says whether it's a tier 1 or a tier 2 account, the minimum account should have a NIN or BVN. So once I open a wallet, I mean, the tier 1 accounts are like wallets, and my phone number is my wallet account. Once I do that, the first thing the bank should check is this phone number linked? Is it linked to the NIN database? If it's linked to the NIN database, then generate a BVN for this person and link it. Send an SMS to the customer to now to complete that process. It is not rocket science. Again, laziness. But you leave accounts for months, transactions will be going on, and then deadline days, you start coercing the customers to come and do what technology should have enabled you to do a long time ago. So let's assume that the servers can't take a lot of traffic at the time you want to do it. Where is the log that says, oh, I have 20 customers who this has not happened with, and I need it to happen within this period of time? Again, we don't follow processes, we're very complacent, we don't take cognizance of the fact that these are serious security implications. We just don't care. We just do things. My people call it anyhowness until a deadline comes or until something very important is happening, and then everybody starts rushing. So for the banks, you blame the banks. The customer cannot know as much as the CBN regulation as the bank. I wouldn't know until you tell me and you make me do the things that needed to be done. If I open a wallet, I'm opening my phone number. It should be linked to my NIN. If it's not, then the customer cannot use that wallet at all. Tell the customer, go to your NIN, and once the customer does that, link it to a BVN. You own the BVN infrastructure, right? So you link it. Or from the customer to link it, dial *111# and then link your BVN. It's technology, easy to be done. But because the person sitting there has some other things to do, he abandons that and it piles up and it becomes a challenge.
Now, you say that we don't follow processes. And, that is also a huge factor that is responsible for where we are today.
Yeah.
And I also wonder that in relation to that, if the fact that those in authorities also do not make processes efficient, that's also part of the reason why we're here today.
Yeah.
I say that because, the NIN-SIM part of this narrative is also a concern where security is the issue. The former Minister of Communication had cause to respond to questions during the kidnap of the Nabiya sisters about why the NIN-SIM policy was not working. And he said that it was working, but that the security agents did not request often enough for the information. I wonder what part of the data protection guidelines make it, a problem of bureaucracy for security agents to access this data in order to check, to fight crime.
There's a lot of complexity going on. As far as technology is concerned, it is not difficult. As we speak, I think that we are putting the cart before the horse as far as this NIN-SIM is concerned. Satellite phones are not affected today. Satellite phones still have a couple of months before they are affected. Now, if you have a satellite phone, you can register up to 9 satellite phones on a NIN. So imagine kidnappers having access to satellite phones, and we can't trace them. And that's what most of them use. So if I were the government, the first level are just actually any satellite gadget that is linked to communication, satellite phones, satellite communication gadgets should be linked to NINs immediately before we even come to the normal phone calls. Right? Because people wonder, so someone makes a call and it's a kidnapper, why can't you trace them? Because it's in a satellite phone.
Oh. And
now satellite phones have up to April or thereabout before they have to comply.
So satellite phones are off the radar.
They're off the radar, They're not connected to your NIN database right now. And they have up to April to do that. As far as kidnapping is concerned and the NIN, so the NIN is not an all-in-one sword that solves the problem. It needs to be coordinated. So as an example, I have my NIN. Is my NIN linked to my postal address as an example? Is it linked to my house? Do I have a verification for my identity up to where I live? So if we're saying NIN, the NIN is as lame as the card you're carrying around. It is just an identity. But can we now activate that identity? If I have a NIN, do I know that this NIN is linked to this postal code, and this postal code is linked to this area, and on this area there's another code for this street, and on this street there are codes for every single building on that street, and every landlord has another code, an extension of the NIN. So if I enter the NIN somewhere, I know that this NIN belongs to this street, and then it lives in this house, and the house is owned by this person. That is when your NIN becomes a very powerful tool to fight crime. As it is, it can't fight crime. It is just as blank as that paper or that plastic you carry around. What it would do now is all these linkages will ensure that we have a central database. But what does my central database do for me if NIPOS is not there, if the primary healthcare is not there? It goes beyond just linking NIN and BVN. It has to be a robust infrastructure, which is why I was happy when they moved away from digital economy to the Ministry of Interior, because it is a national planning, national security issue.
And it's at the heart of this, really, when you think about the idea, it's a brilliant one if we implement it very well. And you wonder again that this is a country where you have brilliant techies. I mean, we have unicorns literally that started in this country, and they're doing great things. And then you weigh that, why are we lacking infrastructure as we ought to have for a government-backed agency? I mean, if it's an individual, you can say you're looking for funding, right? But this is government. You expect that we channel a lot into that. So let's talk about this infrastructure matter, because we're over 100, I think the NIN-SIM database has 104 million on it, and I imagine that's not even exhaustive. There'll probably be a few million more, that will be added to it. I don't know if we need census at this rate to do that one, because some say that may suffice, but that's not the point here. So we know that we have a lot of pressure, right? Hundreds of millions, less than 200 million people. So why would you say it's difficult again to give adequate infrastructure to it? But more importantly, how can we begin to ensure that we have the right infrastructure to handle that kind of pressure so we can get the best out of this for security, economic planning, and so much more?
I think Engineer Bisi Ekuka is taking the right steps. Knowledge is very important, which is why you see her, she's in India today, she's in Canada tomorrow, she's going all over the world and looking at best practices. yes, we have giants, tech giants here. But you see, the civil service is a different ballgame entirely by itself. And our civil servants have not been motivated to work enough. We don't even have enough civil servants. Our cost of governance is very low. It is not.
Our RSI report is smiling at you right now and shaking its head.
Our RSI report actually speaks to efficiency. So if I'm a civil servant, as an example, and I have KPIs set for me, and I know that, as an example, it just goes beyond registering 1 million people. If I register 1 million and I see how active that NIN has become, and I can see on my database there's NIPOS, there's primary healthcare center, all of these things, at the end of the year my bonus is this much. The civil servants will be automatically rejigged. But you see, we take the people angle out of this whole thing and just focus on technology alone, or policies, or laws. The people that are driving this, what part do they play in ensuring that this is driven properly? So for us to come back to the question of infrastructure, I have given this contract to someone, and I'm a civil servant sitting down in my office. This guy has billions of naira to do this infrastructure, and I'm just receiving my 30K, my 50K a month. I'm human. I'll just watch you. And most possibly, maybe I'll frustrate you. Which is why you find the issues where sorting happens, bribery and corruption happens, because the contractor wants his things done. If we need to get this done, we need to bring some kind of knowledge, technical knowledge into the civil service, rejig it, carry the people along. The infrastructure is not a challenge as far as Nigeria is concerned. We have the co-location centers. I don't know if I can mention names on this show, but all of the big boys are here, especially along the shore of Lagos here. They have their huge co-location centers. So infrastructure really is no longer a challenge. We have thousands of kilometers of fiber in this country. The challenge we have is the people challenge. And I'm happy with what I see with the NSA now. There's a lot of coordination going on, and that coordination will have to extend to infrastructure and databases, because for security operatives to really operate and pinpoint where people are, they need the databases from NCC, from NIN-SIM, from everybody. And I see that coordination going to happen. But we must deal with the people part of things. If people are not going to sit up from their table and get things done, nothing will happen. If you send a memo to someone and you tell the person, oh, I need this done in 2 hours, and 2 weeks later it's not done, who calls? What penalties are there? Or even before penalties, what incentive is there for the person to make this work? You can't just say security, security, security. You also need to make the person see, I am a huge part of this, which is why our president is saying we should recite the pledge. It is to my country. What incentive do I have to ensure that my country works? The civil service must see that, and they must be made to see the benefits of being Nigerians, being working for Nigerians. When I'm done from the civil service, what happens to me? Am I abandoned? That people part of this entirety. So technology is great, but the people part of this whole thing, we must not throw away.
So maybe you may be indirectly speaking for Labour, who are asking for ₦1 million as a minimum wage indirectly. But I don't know what you're going to propose, some of the incentives that you're talking about. But there's also the argument of some people are saying, you knew what this space holds before you went in. Why are you asking for what is not available? I knew what channels can offer me, and I knew what I can offer channels. And I wrote a letter, I said, I would like to work with you. And they made a proposal. We negotiated, and we're here. So I'm very clear on why I came and what is obtainable. Now, if I want more, that's a different kettle of fish. So that's sometimes the argument. So I want you to juxtapose that with reforms on one hand, and the other fact that you already knew that this is what the space is obtainable. The contractor is going to see those billions, and you will not see it because it's his job.
So, unfortunately, we cannot juxtapose channels and the civil service.
No.
But that's what needs to happen in the civil service. The challenge we have now is that our civil service is driven largely by nepotism, the man-no-man syndrome. Have you ever seen an ad for employment in the civil service? I've never come across one. And yet people work there, people are employed every single day. The efficiency we need to bring in the civil service needs to follow the way channels also does things. We need to have chief executives that ensure that a civil servant has KPIs and bonuses. We need to bake a bigger pie. Let us not kid ourselves. The potentials for this country to become $1 trillion, $2 trillion economy is there. There are too many low-hanging fruits, which is why I wonder what our ministers are doing. There are too many low-hanging fruits that if I, as an example, I'm a minister today, I sit with my palm sets in my ministry, the first thing we'll look at is where are the low-hanging, where are the potentials to generate enough revenue for ministries that generate revenue, mines and steel, digital economy. These are the low-hanging fruits. If we achieve this milestone, let's say $100 billion within the first year of our, this is the bonus, and I will go to the revenue mobilization and fiscal committee to say, okay, I'm promising this to my farm secs and to my civil servants. We want to achieve this revenue from our ministry this year. If we achieve it, a percentage of this goes back to my civil servants. That is the way we need to begin to think. We need to stop thinking as civil servants as our slaves.
A lot of civil servants will like you right now.
So it is not about 1 million. It's not even about the minimum wage. I think it's embarrassing, and it's again lazy to think in terms of minimum wage. What is the total number of civil servants we have in Nigeria, if you look at it critically? How about the millions who are not civil servants? I think we need to have a minimum environment for productivity. That's what we need. And within that minimum environment for productivity, the engine room is a civil service. If the engine room, which is the civil service, is not driven by technology and driven by chief executives who understand that these people need to be taken care of, inflation is soaring. We're getting close to 40%.
No, food inflation.
Food inflation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Food is the biggest thing that we spend money on in this country. And our civil servants are still earning what they're earning, and there are no buffers, no bonuses. Rejig the entire system. Bring chief executives who can say, I need to generate this amount of money. If I generate it, everybody gets this bonus. And it's cascaded all the way from the top to the bottom. Civil servants will wake up. Let me use NIPOS as an example. That is the biggest low-hanging fruit in the Ministry of Digital Economy. Logistics, moving goods from one place to the other is... So why don't you have a post office box? So if I register my NIN is tied to my post office box, so automatically I have a post office box. Every government interactions is sent to that post office box, and it's digital. All I need to do is enter my code. Either I go there physically or it comes into my box. So every Nigerian will have a PO box. So if I actually spend 500 naira a year to have a PO box that is digital, that takes all of your correspondences, all of your shipping, 500 naira a year times 60 million Nigerians who would need this service, what do you think will happen? NIPOS is the only organization in Nigeria today that can do proper verification of addresses. They know everywhere. Okay. I use NIPOS.
I like the idea.
I use NIPOS.
They might come for you after this, so I hope you're ready for this. But do you suggest that they push the deadline? I know that we do a lot of things last minute, both the organizations, and you referenced some of them, and the people. But would you say maybe we shift the deadline?
So no. There are security implications to this, and people who are criminals are waiting for that deadline to be moved. People have lost money this morning as we speak because nothing is linked. And one boy will just call you and say, I'm calling from FCMB, and you need to do something, you need to link your NIN. And the person clicks a link, and your entire life savings is gone. So we cannot push the deadline. Someone will be kidnapped as we speak. Well, again, that speaks to the fact that there are satellite phones those guys are using, and we have to wait till April to solve that issue. We cannot keep pushing deadlines. Lives are lost every day. Businesses are affected. Money is being lost. How long do we want to keep pushing deadlines for people who are lazy?
So for the legit, they'll be entering the system as a new data, so to speak, because they have missed out on this opportunity.
Exactly.
Well, it's quite insightful.
That's the only option available.
We wish we could continue talking because there's a lot you have to offer, and I hope, I'm praying, not just hoping, I'm also praying that the people in authority are listening to you, because you have just put out myriads of solutions, or loads of solutions, if I may say. Ayewande Adalemo, founder and CEO of Wave 5 Wireless, thank you so much for your insight on this. Of course,
you for having me.
We'll check in on you as much as possible to bring us this, because we need to trace everybody and track everything. This low-hanging fruit, this NIPOS, let's not go there. Well, that's a conversation for this, and I'm sure it's a developing conversation. So go get your SIM. Okay, I don't know whether SIM you still have time. BVN, NIN linked so that you don't get caught up. Well, when we come back, we'll talk to that reality star we've been talking about. Join us again on the program. We'll be right back.